Welcome back to the channel, PloopAChoopTV, and if you're new to the channel, welcome to Break the Backlog, the show where I sit down and provide my thoughts, opinions, and personal stories about a particular game that I've been playing. Today, we're going back to one of my favorite series of all time from my childhood, Kingdom Hearts. I have extremely fond memories of this series, which we'll talk about more in depth later in the video. If you like this style of content, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We post regular content, and we are well on our way to reaching 150 subscribers. With all of that out of the way, sit back and relax as we break the backlog on Kingdom Hearts 1. Is it as good as I remember, or has the story of friendship,
darkness,
the true darkness,
supreme darkness,
soured over the years? The year is 2004, and as a little bamboozled being, I have a strong love for video games. I'm terrible at them, and I can't beat one to save my life, but a deep love nonetheless. My mom had a friend at work who had a son that was my age, and we went to the same summer camp at the YMCA and had gotten along really well. One day, he invited me over to play some games at his house, and of course, I wasn't going to pass up the opportunity to see how another gamer boy lives. So I get there, and he has a system that I've never seen before, a sleek black console that looks a bit like the gray one that my dad had back at home, but the games look different, a little bit better even. I have no recollection of what we played that night except for the last game, right as my mom was coming to get me. My friend looked at me and said, "Have you ever played Kingdom Hearts?" The box art astounded me, as I was a sucker for anything that looked remotely anime. I, like other kids whose childhoods took place in the late 90s and early 2000s, also loved Disney animated movies, and I saw Donald and Goofy as a massive boost to my interest in this title. As a kid, I had no negative thoughts or opinions about Mickey Mouse holding hands with Cloud from Final Fantasy VII. So we popped in the disc, my mom due to arrive in 10 minutes. That opening cutscene sealed the deal. I was hooked, and I barely reached Destiny Island by the time my mom had arrived. In the car ride home, I told her I needed a PS2 for Christmas with this legendary Kingdom Hearts game. I hadn't even seen how the Disney characters would be included into the story, and my little mind could not even fathom how that was going to play out. So fast forward to Christmas morning, we open all of our gifts, and then we get the last one, a PS2. I was so thankful and I love this console, and in fact at one point this was my largest video game collection on any of my consoles that I've owned, before the donation of 2014. That's a topic for another video though. Anyways, I still have fond memories of some of the games that I played on PS2 in the years to come, such as Jak 2, Ratchet & Clank Going Commando, Prince of Persia, and you guessed it, Kingdom Hearts. I couldn't believe that I now had unlimited access to Kingdom Hearts, and it was glorious. I couldn't wait to unravel the story, see where these giant-footed kids ended up, how the Disney characters played into it, and live the magic that I felt when I saw that opening cutscene for the first time. And then at some point I must have gotten stuck and then quit and picked up something else, because I've stated numerous times on this channel that I was a habitual player and buyer of video games, but I really didn't beat too many of them. Unfortunately, Kingdom Hearts went unbeaten for quite some time, and while I finished Kingdom Hearts 2 after getting it as a kid, I didn't really look back at Kingdom Hearts 1 all that much until my early 20s. This is when I made the decision to stop being afraid of playing games on their hardest difficulty. I had just come off beating all of the Wolfenstein games on their hardest difficulty, and I decided to return to this game that represented a series that had always had a special place in my heart. No pun intended. So I sat down and restarted this journey and beat the game for the first time on Proud Mode. And then a few years later, I beat it alongside Nadia watching because she too loved Kingdom Hearts but never finished it. Then fast forward to this year, and I realized that I still didn't really know how I fully felt about Kingdom Hearts as an adult. And since 2023 is going to be my year of finishing games, I decided to slap this little game on my stream list and break the backlog on it. So here are my thoughts after beating Kingdom Hearts 1 for like, I don't know, the third time. For the uninitiated, Kingdom Hearts can be a little complex to understand, at least as a whole. Because of that, and because I only played the first one on stream so far, we're only going to focus on Kingdom Hearts 1's story for this video. This is because I also plan to replay the whole series on our Twitch channel over time, and then make subsequent videos like these, where it's sort of a retrospective covering all of the Kingdom Hearts games eventually. That's the goal. We'll see how that goes. So after that beautiful cutscene of Sora falling everywhere, we end up in a dark place atop a stained glass platform. While running through this odd dreamlike world, Sora interacts with various characters from his home island, and then fights the massive Heartless known as Darkseid. After defeating this monstrosity and being absorbed into the shadows, Sora wakes up on the beach of the island where he and the other children go to play. His friend Kairi calls Sora after a race with rival Riku and whatever the hell Kairi is doing here.
Oh, Sora, Riku, oh!
Sora goes off to gather supplies for his adventure with his friends. Sora and the gang are planning on traveling to other worlds on a raft that they built, and in these final days on Destiny Island, Sora is tasked with gathering raft supplies and food. This opening was charming, and I remember back in the day I thought it was really cool, but on my third playthrough doing these chores while Kairi made friendship bracelets by the ocean and Riku swung his sword at the wind and thought of ways to traumatize Sora by stealing Kairi, it was really boring. Thankfully, the events on Destiny Island don't take too long to get through, and before you know it, Sora's mom calls out
Dinner's ready!
and then the world explodes. Okay, well, some other little stuff happens too, like Sora becoming a Keyblade wielder, Kairi doing a Casper the Ghost impression, and Riku reaching out to Sora, but not really attempting to grab his hand if we're being honest, and then Pikachu's surprise face when Sora has new friends later. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Where were we? Oh yeah, dinner is ready and the world explodes. From here, Sora is thrust into the other worlds that he and his friends so desperately wanted to adventure to, though those same friends are nowhere to be seen. As such, Sora sets out to find them in this strange new world that he has encountered, but not before meeting the business end of a gunblade held by the hero of everyone's favorite Final Fantasy, Squall. Okay, sorry, I meant Leon. After Sora wakes up from the vicious concussion that Leon gives him, it's explained that as long as Sora wields the Keyblade, the Heartless will be drawn to him. As his explanation wraps up, Heartless invade the room and Leon jumps out over the balcony protagonist style and tells us, "Forget the small fry and go for the leader." Which is an awesome quote as long as you aren't a 14-year-old boy whose only combat experience is beating the tar out of other kids on your island with a wooden sword. After carving his way through these small fry, Sora has a chance meeting with Donald and Goofy, who, under the direction of King Mickey, I love these games, and sometimes even I still can't believe some of the shit you have to explain. Okay, they're under the direction of King Mickey, who tells him to search for a person with a key, which Sora has. The three of them then take down the leader, Heartless, that Leon was also going for, but I don't know where he's at. I guess he got busy with the small fry that he left us to deal with. This is the beginning of the main story arc. Sora may be looking for his friends, and Donald and Goofy may be searching for King Mickey now that they found the key, but these three will become tangled in a plot of kidnapping princesses, opening doors of hearts and everlasting darkness, and Disney properties. This journey will see Sora and his new companions traveling to various Disney-themed worlds in which they befriend and then help the relevant Disney characters seal keyholes that each of the worlds has, returning them to a safer and more stable state. I want to take a quick second to talk about the worlds in this game. There are 13 different worlds to visit in-game, including the 2 in-game worlds. Of these, there are obviously debates over which ones are better than others and what have you. I didn't realize until recently that Deep Jungle, the Tarzan world, was universally hated amongst the fandom, so I thought in this video I would just quickly give my thoughts and feelings about each world. Deep Jungle is one that I always liked because I loved Tarzan as a kid. Admittedly, the platforming and traversal in this world can make it a difficult one, but I really enjoyed the immersion of feeling like I was actually lost in the jungle. This felt like Sora and crew had no idea where they were at. I didn't mind this one at all. I think Sabor attacking the party throughout the beginning until she finally is slain kept me on my toes and really added to the immersion that the jungle is not a human's home. I remember that Clayton boss fight really giving me trouble as a kid, but this time around it was easy enough. Focusing on the stealth sneak first made beating the tar out of Clayton pretty easy. I still, after all these years, find it funny that this man Clayton was so hurt that he couldn't just murder gorillas, that he instead tried to murder not only another human in Tarzan, but then turns his gun on a 14-year-old kid in Sora. Yeah, I'm gonna give this a solid B. Wonderland is a world that I've never really liked, and I've never really been able to put my finger on why. Just not a huge Alice in Wonderland fan, and while I thought the mystery aspect was neat, and searching for evidence to stack the odds in our favor when fighting the Queen's Guards was a nice touch, I just never really vibed with this one. Gonna give it a C. The Colosseum is next, which is Hercules' world. Now, this world does not have a ton to it in terms of exploration, but at first, the tournaments were a good way to grind for a bit during my playthrough. I will say that they lose their charm pretty quickly, and they feel like more of a chore moving forward. Seeing Cloud wrapped up in Hades' game was cool, but after saving him from Cerberus, the story here just kind of dies off. Not bad at all, just nothing to it. Gonna have to give this one a C also. Agrabah was pretty okay, a world that had some pretty neat looking heartless that are kind of tough when you first touch down. I love the Aladdin movies, and while I felt that the city itself was a bit lacking, exploring the Cave of Wonders and beating Jafar's power-hungry ass was a pretty sick adventure. Gonna give this one a B+. Monstro was a world that I hated as a kid, and it was actually the reason I got stuck and stopped playing this game too. I don't really remember how, but I recall the tunnels being really confusing to me as a child. This time around, it was pretty easy, but also pretty boring. I will say that Monstro swallowing the gummy ship was a pretty cool entrance, and chasing down the eternally sassy bitch Riku after he kidnaps Pinocchio was a great plot pivot, as we've seen Riku be manipulated by Maleficent, and this has begun to make him turn against Sora. But I guess I just never forgave this whale for trapping me in its tum-tum. Gonna give it a C-. Halloween Town is one of my favorite Kingdom Hearts worlds. The Heartless look awesome, as do our cast members and their costumes that are meant to help them blend in with the inhabitants of this world. I also think that the story here is dope, and a smart use of the property in combination with the concepts that are introduced by Kingdom Hearts. Drac trying to recreate a concept as loaded and vague as a heart for the very trivial purpose of making Heartless dance with him really fits his character. He ignores Sally's warnings and continues in his invention until it blows up in his face. I also thought that the Oogie Boogie fight was pretty fun, and defeating him as a large monster house was a pretty nice close to the world. Now, this isn't to say that this world is perfect. My main complaint about Halloween Town comes down to the mechanic that I hated in this Kingdom Hearts title since the very first time I played it. I cannot stand having to defeat every enemy in an area just to be able to use the triangle button to open a chest or a door, and in Halloween Town, you often have to use the interaction button to progress through the level. This means a lot of unnecessary combat, and in turn, a lot of boring moments where I'm just smacking around Heartless so I can move on. What happened to forget the small fry, go for the leader? Still though, this world is great and the level design is really a treat for me to return to. I'm gonna give this one an A. F. Moving on. Neverland was pretty short, but I have fondness for it because I never reached this world as a kid. Overall, the story in this world does expand on the Sora, Riku, and Kairi plot, but with it being just as short as it is, it felt kind of rushed. I think on stream this took me like 20 minutes to do. There's not a whole lot of substance here, and the Captain Hook boss fight, while different and that we can just fly around and avoid damage, was a little boring because of its easiness. I'm gonna give it a middling C score, just average. 100 Acre Wood. I can't speak to a whole lot of this one because I barely played it in any of my other playthroughs, and I skipped it on this playthrough entirely, but I do remember it being kind of whatever. Guess we'll just throw it in C. Now we're gonna talk about each of the original worlds that are not Disney properties. Destiny Island is a charming enough intro, as I stated earlier, and seeing the various Final Fantasy characters around the island was a nice Easter egg for fan service, whatever you want to call it. The time we spent here is brief but impactful. This is the island that the three main characters wish to desperately leave to fuel their sense of adventure, but upon leaving the island, Sora just wants to go home with his best friends. This shift in Sora's understanding is relatable as all of us move from that awkward period of being like a teenager to an adult. We are all wanting to grow up and go out into the world so fast as children that by the time that we're having our own adventures in the adult world, there are many days where most of us just want to shed our responsibilities of being an adult and return to the more carefree life of being a child. I also think that that's why seeing the island get threatened by the Heartless and Sora's panic as he runs between Riku and Kairi just to lose his two friends that he wanted to see the world with is such a powerful moment. This island being attacked and overtaken by darkness is a representation of the innocence and carefree life that Sora has led being stripped from him, and acts as a sort of monkey's paw kind of deal where he and his friends wished to leave his island, but when they did, they were separated, with Riku and Sora literally becoming enemies. I think that's why Destiny Island feels so cozy to me. From the story I told earlier of how I got into this game, it just gives me that beautiful feeling of nostalgia, and while it is boring to go around collecting mushrooms and coconuts and rope, I do love returning here every so often. I think that this is the perfect start to the adventure because of this symbolism, and I probably just thought way too hard about it, but that's what it means to me, so I'm going to have to give this one an A. Traverse Town is the world that Sora arrives in after Destiny Island is destroyed. It's sort of a city of refugees whose worlds met a similar fate to Sora's. Traverse Town is a beautiful place to explore that does feel like a place full of people just trying to survive. Most of the districts are overrun by Heartless, with only one appearing to be inhabitable in any way, but there are signs of stores and homes in other parts of the world. I've always liked Traverse Town and think that it was a great choice as a sort of HQ of sorts for Sora to return to and upgrade the gummy ship, practice magic, and brood with Leon. The armored bosses you fight here were okay, but I think that the general vibe and context of this being a world of survivors gives Traverse Town its unique character. I'm going to give it a B+. If Traverse Town is the Light Side's HQ, then Hollow Bastion is the Agent of Darkness HQ. Hollow Bastion is the first world in the endgame pair that we visit, and man, was this one special. Even the music changes as you approach it in the gummy ship, and it alludes to this being the beginning of the end of our journey. The soundtrack choice of this journey to the HQ carry with it the strength that Sora and the gang have gained over the course of their journey, as well as the anxiety that I would imagine Sora would be feeling as he gets closer to the final clash with not only the evil powers behind all of the kidnappings and Heartless, but his best friend. If I put myself in Sora's giant shoes, I imagine that I too would be feeling the excitement for the end of a long and hard-fought journey, while also being afraid that to reach the end of this, I would possibly need to take out my best friend. Traversing Hollow Bastion was confusing on my first playthrough, but solving the various puzzles was kind of a nice tempo change from most worlds being easy puzzle but fighting heavy. Each complete puzzle felt like one step closer to the aforementioned face-off. The world is gorgeous and expansive, from the beginning areas of water and ice that we ascend to the massive palace that we explore. This is a fantastically designed world. The world also features some of the symbolism that I think makes it much more special, like Sora losing the Keyblade, which causes Donald and Goofy to leave his side. This Keyblade has been an integral part of the story, and without it, Sora can no longer fight the Heartless. All seems lost as our young Keyblade wielder drops to his hands and knees. Looking back on all the worlds that Sora had visited and sealed, his next moves make much more sense. Sora decides that no matter what, he will fight to the end, and he has to rely on yet another Disney friend, Beast, to help him navigate the castle without his trusty weapon. Later on, Sora commits Dai to free Kairi's heart from within him and becomes a Heartless as a result. He has just spent the entire game tracking her and Riku down, and now that he has the ability to free her at the cost of his own life, he takes the opportunity. Some may call him a simp, but I'm gonna call him a Sugma male. Once reunited, we see Kairi say that she is going to protect him now, and then immediately gets put into a life-threatening situation, but, the thought was there. This represents Sora's realization that his friends are his power, because in the face of extreme adversity, they protected him. This belief that no matter what, the light will find a way is ultimately why the Keyblade noticed that Riku kinda smells. Hollow Bastion is the best Kingdom Hearts world hands down. A+. The end of the world is a cool concept, but this is a place of frustration that I'm sure many Keyblade wielders have lost their cool in. Going through that gauntlet run at the end and fighting like 8 waves of Heartless can be brutal, as I remember it was during my Proud Mode run. Not to mention or overlook the final boss for the whole game is split into phases, a few of which require Sora to fight alone. This place is pretty hardcore, but I still think that a world that is like a tear in the universe is a good final area. I just don't always like the palette choices here, and some of the longer fights can be a bit overwhelming if you don't have the resources. Or strike grade. Solid B-. I want to go back and cover the other 3 worlds more in depth now: Destiny Island, Traverse Town, and Hollow Bastion. These 3 worlds represent the larger success of the world building done here by Square. The company could have easily just taken the route of a cash grab and allowed the Disney properties to shine and carry this title, but actual thought and care was displayed in crafting original characters and story here. Sure, there is cringe. Okay, there's a lot of cringe, but the overarching narrative is one here that I feel like many of us identified with. I remember thinking that it would be cool to sail the seas with my friends, discovering new places. And sure, if you're some smelly realism Andy, then yeah, any group of kids would probably be shark food or washed away at sea, but a kid's imagination could run wild with this concept. I think that many of us that experienced this title as kids and preteens could identify with what is essentially Sora's quest to find his friends. I also found the structure of the story to be compared to another medium that I'm really fond of, writing. If you want to skip this part, I am not going to be offended, be my guest. But for anybody who's interested, or fellow writers or avid readers, I just wanted to talk about how this story fits into the Save the Cat story structure, or at least bits and pieces of it really follow that structure. Save the Cat is essentially a novel planning guide that breaks down the steps of writing a story into these specific story beats, and I found it interesting to see how Kingdom Hearts has some resemblance of this. I won't get too in depth, but I do want to point out some key examples. In the Save the Cat story beats, the hero often rejects the call to journey into a new world in favor of staying in their comfortable and plain old habitat. Sora kinda shows this during the scene where his island is being attacked by the Heartless and Riku and Kairi have disappeared. When the journey that he originally envisioned for himself with his friends is not the adventure that he is presented with, Sora did what most 14-year-old kids would have done and fights and resists that change. He then spends most of the game wanting to find them and return to his world. I also find the story beat All Is Lost to hit extremely hard in the story when Sora loses the ability to wield the Keyblade, and with it, Donald and Goofy. It isn't looking great for our wooden plank wielding hero. I mean, even the finale of the story aligns with the break into 3 and finale beats of the Save the Cat structure, when Sora realizes that there will always be light, or whatever, and uses this knowledge to talk no jutsu Kingdom Hearts into light instead of darkness and save the world. My point is, the story ain't half bad. It's pretty cringy at times, but it ain't half bad, come on fellas. At its core, Kingdom Hearts manages to cover themes that its young demographic could identify with while still being understandable and applicable to these same people as we have aged. It's a game about friendship and how the bonds that we have with the people we love can be stronger than any adversity we may face, and upon completing this game for the 3rd time, I can say that I still love the story and do not think that's ever going to change. Traveling across the Disney worlds and befriending a whole cast of characters that represents the transitional period that many of us go through at the same age as Sora. At 14, I was just starting high school, and I remember how scary this new journey felt in the days leading up to the first day. But the bonds that I made with many of those friends in junior high helped me find comfort in those early days, and many of those people I still consider friends to this day. Kingdom Hearts is an RPG in which the developer originally wanted to find a way to translate the menus, leveling up through experience points, and the party-based combat from its turn-based parent franchise, Final Fantasy, into a more hack-and-slash action-based system. I feel like the goal of this was largely achieved with Kingdom Hearts, as the combat does feel like the predecessor to what would later become combat system used in future Final Fantasy titles like 15 and the 7 Remake. Sora has combos that can be expanded upon using skills, and while the player never directly controls any other party characters in the game, they do have some control over utilizing the customization menu to plan out how the various party members will act in battle. This can look like telling Donald to chill a little bit on casting Thunder every 2 seconds and instead conserve his MP to cast defensive magic, or maybe telling Goofy to attack more aggressively. Other than this though, I gotta say that Donald and Goofy are just not the most useful party members in the latter portions of this game. Often they spend more of their time dead on the ground than they actually do supporting Sora in battle. As much as these guys talk about one for all and all for one, it sure does feel like Sora's taken on the world 1v1 in some of the tougher boss fights. As far as Sora's combat abilities, he has combos that stem from a basic 3-hit combo that can be upgraded and added to using various skills, as I said earlier. Sora also has access to magic like Fire and Cure like Donald does, and he can cast hard-hitting Keyblade abilities such as Strike Raid, which offer him invincibility frames while he dishes out large doses of damage and throws his Keyblade. These combat arts are pretty flashy, and I don't know if I would have had as much success in combat without using them. That solo Ansem fight is a lot easier than I remember when I just beat his ass with Ars Arcanum, which is a powerful Keyblade combo that can hit him through his Guardian that protects him. The progression system really allows the player to witness Sora becoming stronger as he hones his Keyblade skills and gains combat experience. I also loved recollecting the various Keyblades from the Disney worlds, and I thought it was pretty cool that they thought even to make them different lengths and had different respective boons and banes. I tried going through the game with just the Kingdom Key until I ran into the heavyweight champ of Atlantica, Mega Ursula. I eventually switched to the 3 Wishes Keyblade from Aladdin, and oh man goddamn was it much easier. I do feel like the combat does have some strengths like gaining skills and upgrading magic that realizes the progression of Sora as a Keyblade wielder. Sora in the game can also summon Disney characters to help them fight like Dumbo and Simba. I never used these in this playthrough, but they're pretty fun and nifty from what I remember. You can trade 2 party members to summon forth a more powerful and temporary friend that provides buffs and takes out hordes of Heartless in no time. That being said, the combat does feel a bit sluggish when compared to later entries, and while I do appreciate that Sora should feel much stronger in later titles as he continued to build on his experiences, I would be lying if I said I did not get fatigued on this run of Kingdom Hearts. Sometimes the combat can just be a bit too sluggish for my liking, and that could totally just be a me thing. But I was actually a bit bored during some of the longer fights. Overall, the combat definitely achieved what it set out to do. However, as the series progresses, it gets much more fluid and much more fun to complete. I definitely won't miss the combat of this game, even though I do feel like it works. Really weird, kind of gray area in there. Just kind of feel like 2 things are true. The clunkiness does not stop with the combat either, as I did feel as though some of the traversal and platforming in worlds like Deep Jungle were awkward and frustrating at times, and trying to jump and balance with size 34 shoes on is not an easy task. Camera also fought against me sometimes during fights and made it difficult to reorient myself and made these clunky platforming areas even more annoying. Luckily, this was remedied a bit after unlocking the ability to super jump and glide, but for much of the early game, jumping, climbing, and exploring can feel very awkward and very frustrating. There's actually no better example of this than the Mega Ursula fight that I mentioned earlier. She takes up most of the screen, and despite this game being 3D, it almost feels as though you're fighting on a strange 2D plane, as swimming around and using the dolphin kick to position yourself behind Ursula's Dimmadome seems like something the game doesn't really want you to do. I don't know how to explain this the way that I want to, but if you know, you know. This game is kind of a chunky boy at times, and the slow nature of it made it feel like sometimes a chore during some of the more boring bits, or towards the end when I was just past the point of wanting to be done. The Gummy Ship is how the party progresses to the various worlds, and it basically is an on-rails bullet hell kind of experience that is also fairly boring, but I didn't really mind these as much as some people seem to, because once you get the Warp Gummy, you never have to do these twice. Just find a world, go through a boring ship travel level, and boom, we're warping next time. I'm also not a completionist, so that could also be why I don't really mind this as much. My last gripe with the gameplay is one that seems really small, but I think led to my feelings of burnout during my playthrough. I mentioned this a little bit earlier with the Halloween Town thing, but not being able to use the interact or triangle button during combat. Oh my god, is this annoying. This has annoyed me ever since I first played Kingdom Hearts. It made me not enjoy some of the worlds as much as I would have had it not been present. Like I said, Halloween Town. You have to press triangle while near the doorway to each zone or interact with some kind of switch to open up a pathway. This means that you have to fight every enemy in the area to be able to do this, and it just kind of led to the experience being slowed down, and personally, I didn't like this. It also doesn't add to shitty worlds either, like Atlantica, how you have to kind of float around with that stupid dolphin thing. Ugh, just didn't like it. I also don't know how many chests I honestly just skipped because I couldn't be bothered to kill all the Heartless in an area. All things considered, I feel like the mechanics and combat of this game were great on my first playthrough as a kid, and they served as an introduction to the Final Fantasy Extended Universe for me. However, it has aged quite a bit for me, and during this playthrough, there were definitely times that I was pretty bored. Overall, it isn't bad at all, just a bit clunky and old for me. The presentation is one of Kingdom Hearts' biggest strengths. As I stated before, the opening cutscene just hits differently. The music in this game is beautiful, and while it sucks that Utada Hikaru and Disney will laser any stream VOD that even features a fart in the same key as their properties, the music is just amazing. Dearly Beloved and Kairi's theme are still two of the most recognizable video game songs of all time, as well as two of my favorite personal songs in all of gaming. The orchestral music features songs for every mood and occasion throughout the story, such as tense fights, the touching memories of past interactions between characters, and the sense of childlike wonder that venturing into a new world brings forth. Every world has its own respective song choices, and overall, I think that the soundtrack is a flawless masterpiece that has aged extremely well over the years. I still throw these songs on while I edit, write these scripts, or when I'm just casually gaming in my room. As for the voice acting, I found it pretty great as well. Some of the writing is cringy, as I said, but that's part of the charm of these games. I am genuinely happy that I got to force my chat to experience this gem.
Kairi's inside me?
And this one. Sure, these dialogue clips are goofy, no pun intended, and cringe, but they add to the charm that Kingdom Hearts has. I feel like the main cast did a fantastic job, as did the actors playing all of the Disney and Final Fantasy characters. As for the art style, Kingdom Hearts is an art-driven game, with stylistic choices being made to the character designs to make them have that well-known Tetsuya Nomura look. The large shoes, zippered jackets, and multiple buttons set against vibrant colors and character art that looks a little darker than what would expect for a Disney title are all found here. Some of the design choices are things that we make fun of now, like Sora's massive shoes, but they're iconic, and to be honest, most of us as a kid saw the anime-like artwork and were just blown away. I used to try to model my walk back in 2nd grade after Sora's walking animation, and I just know I had to look so stupid. I personally love the art style of this game as well, and graphically the 1.5 and 2.5 remixes still look really good to this day. I had no issues with the graphics or art style during my playthrough, and I think that these games will continue to hold up due to the beautiful and stylized art direction. This also extends to the world design as well, as each world featured recognizable parts of their respective title, and I can't imagine how difficult this must have been to try and capture and represent on the hardware at the time. As I said before, the presentation of this game is one of the biggest strengths, and I believe that this will continue to be the case as the titles continue to age. Kingdom Hearts has a strong foothold in my childhood and formative years, and it's the start of a series that grew up with me. There were times where the game felt dated, and the clunkiness of the gameplay and combat really made the playthrough feel like a slog. And yes, after finishing this run, I did tell my chat I would not be playing Kingdom Hearts 1 for a very long time, because I was so burnt out by the end. But I still have a ton of love for this game and its melodramatic and emo story that takes itself way too seriously sometimes, because I believe in the core messaging under all of that emo teen angst. Its art style and soundtrack have cemented this as an influential game from my childhood that I will never forget. And while I do feel that it has aged, it's a game that I'm thankful that I got to experience, as it led to so many fond memories from being a kid. Kingdom Hearts has taught me that friendship and those that we surround ourselves with can become our protection and strength when all hope seems to be lost and in our darkest moments. I know if you've been following this channel for a while, you know that in my personal life, as well as Nadia's personal life, with everything that we've been through for the last few years, I would not be here today had it not been for my friends and family acting as my light. Thank you for all of your support and love over the last couple years. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if you have some memories or opinions about Kingdom Hearts, be sure to share them down below in the comments. I would love to have discussions with you guys about this game and hear how you guys got into the series. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe for future uploads, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.